Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our Mother's Day online service from Unity Baptist Church in Champaign, Illinois. And again, we are located on 404 South Duncan Road, just south of Prairie Gardens and also south of the intersection of Springfield and Duncan Road, behind the Carpenters Union. And so we would love to have you come and join us for our in-person service if you live in this particular area. Today is Mother's Day, and we want to honor the ladies in our church today and online as well who have children and bear the title of mother. What a wonderful title to have, and what a wonderful state to be in your life, to be the mother of children. And the Bible talks about that quite a bit, actually. And so we want to talk about it today as well as we remember our moms. I want you to turn in your Bibles, if you will, to the book of Proverbs, chapter 1, verses 7 through 9. And as you probably know, the book of Proverbs is written by what is considered to be the wisest man that ever lived. His name was Solomon. And when the Lord asked him at the beginning of his reign what he wanted, the Lord said, "Ask me anything and I will give it to you." And what he asked for was wisdom. Give me wisdom to know how to deal with your people, how to rule them in a way that is going to be pleasing to you and is going to be the right way. And the Lord said, because you have not asked for riches, because you have not asked for fame, I'm going to grant your request for wisdom for my people, and then I'm going to give you wealth, and I'm going to give you fame as well. And the Lord used Solomon in that way, and he wrote the book of Proverbs, the book of Ecclesiastes. He wrote the book of Song of Solomon. Solomon is one of the great characters, certainly one of the great kings of Israel, and ruled in Israel during its glory days of its existence. So he talks to his son in Proverbs chapter 1. His son was probably Rehoboam, the son that he is talking to, who would follow him as king of the nation of Israel. And he's talking to him about wisdom and about the responsibility of a mother and a father in giving wisdom to their children and how they are to deal with that. And we're going to deal with all of that today, but I want to especially emphasize the mother's responsibility in transferring wisdom to the lives of her children. In Proverbs chapter 1, beginning at verse number 7, Solomon said to his son, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and don't reject your mother's teaching, for they will be garland of favor on your head and pendants around your neck." So I want to talk to you today about not forsaking your mother's law. When my wife Ellen and I moved to California in 1972, one of the first things that we were told to get when we got there was a Los Angeles County and an Orange County map book. And the reason for that was that LA, the metro area of LA at that time was about 9 million people and was growing rapidly. In fact, it was growing so quickly that streets were often not continuous. And in order and what I mean by that is that you would go a block on this particular street, and it might be 2 or 3 blocks over before that street would pick up again for the next few blocks. It was very confusing, and in order to navigate to your destination, you needed a map. it was absolutely crazy, and it was very confusing. I don't know if it's that way now, but that's the way it was then. And I was afraid. I was a young kid from Jacksonville, Illinois. We didn't have those kind of streets, and we didn't live in that kind of area. I was afraid I was going to get lost and never get found. So to save yourself from an afternoon of endless and aimless wandering, you would pull out your handy map book and help to orient yourself to exactly where you are and how you needed to get to your destination. One intersection in Norwalk, California was called 5 Points. And at 5 Points, you had several very busy streets merging from all different directions. Stoplights were everywhere. Everybody was in a hurry. It was total confusion. And the slightest turn of the wheel could head you off in the wrong direction. I was warned to stay away from 5 Points, but the fact was that I couldn't. I mean, you had to deal with that intersection. And it was very difficult, very confusing. And life can be like that at times. It'd be relatively easy to navigate life if every path we chose was straight on to the destination we were seeking to get to. If every crossroad was at a right angle and every intersection was a four-way stop, that would be easy, but life isn't like that, is it? Every life has its 5 point moments where everything comes at us at once. Circumstances demand instant decisions, and the fear of making the wrong choice and heading off in our life in the wrong direction, those kinds of moments haunt us. And in those moments, when we sit at those 5 point intersections in our life, we might say to ourselves, boy, I just wish I had a map book. I wish there was something that I had that could guide me in making the right choices, making the right turns in my life. I wish I had someone sitting beside me who has been at this intersection of life before, who could give me some wisdom as to how I need to deal with this intersection in my life. Well, the fact is that the God who gave us life also has provided for the necessities of the life he has given to us. And if we will avail ourselves of those provisions, then life becomes easier to navigate. He has given us a book, the Bible, that is really a map book for us to navigate the confusion of life. He has given us companions, people who are beside us on this journey, who have traveled this road of life before us, people who have been at the intersections of life that we come to in our own life. There are people who love us. They are people who care about us, people who want the best for us, and who have a vested interest in our making the right choices in our lives. They are our parents. Now, I know that's probably not a very popular view in our day, when rebellion against anything of authority seems to be rejected by so many in our day, but it is the fact that the Bible lays out for us that God has given us parents who love and care about us, who want the best for us, who have been where we are going, and who can help us navigate that part of our life. As a matter of fact, the Lord has given us these provisions for a specific purpose, the Bible says in the book of Malachi, chapter 2, verses 14 and 15. And there he states that God's purpose in marriage and in the marriage relationship is the production of a godly seed or a godly offspring or godly children. That's the primary goal of parenthood. Not to the exclusion of other things. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but parents need to teach their children a good work ethic. They need to give them a good education. They need to teach them how to take care of themselves physically in terms of personal hygiene. They need to encourage them in sports because they learn so many good life lessons in sports. But those things, according to the Word of God, those things are secondary to the primary goal of raising our children, as Paul says in Ephesians chapter 6 and verse number 4, in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So that's the primary goal, is to raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Now, on this Mother's Day, I want to talk about this marvelous arrangement that God has instituted to help us navigate the sometimes confusing pathways of life. It is called family. And that is what Solomon is talking about in our text. And all of us, every single one of us, play a role in this arrangement. Everybody listening to me, everyone who will be in our services this morning at our church, whatever their age, are participants in bringing to pass God's objective for family, for marriage, for children. And life itself is going to pronounce its judgment on how well we fulfilled that role. This first section of Proverbs is about the role of parents and the role they have in instilling of wisdom in the life of their children. That's our assignment, and the 3 verses of our text tell us how it is to be done. So there are 4 points that I want to make today. The first one is this, in verse number 7. I want to talk for just a moment about wisdom's starting point. Where do you start with this? If I want to reach the objective that God has for me, as in my case as a father, if you're listening to me and you're a mother, then where do you start with this? This is an amazing assignment that God has placed in our hands. So does he give us any guidance as to where you start? Well, the first thing I want to point out in verse number 7 is wisdom's starting point. Now remember, Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived, is giving advice to a young son. And he starts with wisdom's starting point. And he says in verse number 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge or wisdom, but fools despise wisdom, and they despise discipline. The Bible makes it very clear to us that the rearing of a godly seed must begin not in the life of the child, but in the life of the parent who produced the child. If you go back to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verses 4 through 9, the man Moses is giving his final instructions to the children of Israel before they go into the land of Canaan to conquer it. Now, Moses is not going to go because of an issue of disobedience in his life, but he is telling these people that he loves what they need to do, what they need to be as they go into that land. And it's interesting what he says. He says, the Lord our God is one Lord. And these things, this is a paraphrase, these things that you have learned, need to, first of all, be in your heart. They need to be in your heart. Before you pass them on, before you even attempt to pass them on to your children, they need to be in your heart. They need to be bound upon your forehead. They need to be upon your hands. They need to be talked about when you lay down and when you rise up, when you're walking by the way. And what he's saying is that the fear of the Lord, the Word of God needs to be the primary issue in the life of of the individual and in our lives as we seek to teach our children. It begins with a reverential fear of the Lord in the heart and life of the parent. This fear of the Lord is the beginning. It's the starting point of this process of transferring this reverence to our children. So Solomon's speaking directly to his own son Rehoboam about his relationship with the Lord. To fear the Lord for the believer is not to be afraid of him. You know, it's not like we cower in fear to the Lord. It is instead that the idea is the idea of reverence for him and reverence for his love and his work on our behalf. It involves obedience to him. It involves submitting our lives to his discipline in our life. It involves worshiping in him. It involves understanding his glory and his character to the extent that it affects the way we live our lives. This is not some formal thing that we learn, something, whether it's a catechism or a statement of faith that we learn and we just repeat out of rote memory. It's not that. It is something that's in our heart. It's a part of us. The fear of the Lord is the starting point. If I want to raise a godly seed, it has to start with me, not with them. It starts with me. It is to so live as to bring honor and glory and praise to his name. When we live like that in public and in private, and that's important too, when we live like that, we greatly enhance the prospect of our children through the process of time, picking up on the life that we are living and following after the Lord as well. So this is where Solomon's advice about parenting begins. He reminds his son that the person who hates wisdom, the person who hates instruction on how to conduct themselves in this life, that kind of a person is a fool. They are foolish. And the Bible describes the foolish man as the one who disregards the word of God. It has many things to say. The Bible has many things to say about fools and the way they live their life. They live their life deceptively and immorally and dishonestly and rebelliously. And a foolish life can be turned around when the individual repents of their sin, reverences the Lord, and submits themselves to the commands of God's word. So if you are asking today, where does this start? How do I raise a godly seed? It starts with you. It starts with me, and not with our children, but it starts in our own heart. Solomon goes on in verse number 8, and he says, "Listen, my son, to your father's instruction." So the second thing I want us to notice about this is wisdom's instruction. It seems obvious here from the biblical perspective that raising this son, in his case, this child that Solomon is talking to, that the raising of this son is to be done in partnership with its mother. This is a complete sentence. Listen to the instruction of your father. Don't reject the teaching of your mother. This is a partnership. And this part of the verse talks about your father's instruction. Now, the father is the head of the home in terms of moral and spiritual responsibility before God. The Bible clearly teaches that. And it also teaches that the dad is to be deeply involved in preparing the child for life by means of instruction in the principles of godliness. Recently, a debate has raged about whose responsibility it is to raise children in our society. And the question that kind of underlines all of this is, whose children are they anyway? In 1996, Hillary Rodham Clinton, the First Lady at that time, wrote a book entitled "It Takes a Village to Raise a Child." And this book emphasizes the shared responsibility society has in raising successful children. So in other words, it's not just the home that bears the responsibility, the whole society bears the responsibility of raising children, so that if a child goes astray, it's not the parents' fault, or they have a part in it to be sure, but it's the whole society that bears responsibility for the way a child ends up. Thomas Sowell, who is a very well-respected economist and philosopher and author from Stanford University in California, responded to this philosophical approach that was found in this book. And he said that someone had said that it takes a village idiot to believe that. And he made the point that it is part of the whole thing of third parties wanting to make decisions for which they pay no price when they're wrong. So if somebody goes astray, it's nobody's fault. It's society at large. Nobody has to have the blame pinned upon them, because it's everybody's responsibility. Well, that's not what the Bible says. Last month at a White House meeting honoring teachers, President Biden said this: they're all our children. They're not somebody else's children. They're like yours when they're in the classroom. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. President, but that is not what the Bible teaches. When God grants to me the privilege of being a father, when He gave to my wife the privilege of being a mother, He gave that responsibility to us as a shared responsibility in raising our daughter and raising our son. But that shared responsibility is not between parents and the government. I mean, what does Washington, D.C. know about my children? What does it know about my family? What does it know about my son and my daughter or my grandchildren? It knows nothing. We are a number in some bureau somewhere. God gave that responsibility to us, the father and the mother of that child. We are the ones who, before God, bear the responsibility for the training of our children. And the father is to instruct his family in the teaching of God's word. He needs to teach them by word and by the example of his life the principles and the truths of God's word. Our children are to observe our lives And they are to observe from our life that the scriptures, the Bible, the words of God are authoritative in our lives. And the way that we teach them that is that we submit ourselves to the teachings of this book. And our children are going to be picking up on that. Kids are very perceptive. And over a period of time, they are going to be able to see that this book means something more than just something that we carry to church on Sunday morning. It is something that guides and directs and is authoritative in our life. And not that we are perfect in submission and obedience to its commands. I understand that. But overall, the direction of our life is to submit to it. And we instruct them, our children, on the issues of life by permeating our life with the principles of God's Word revealed to us in this book. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9. Talk about them when you lay down, when you rise up, when you're walking by the way. Write them on the doorposts of your house. Put them upon your gates. I mean, what it describes is a family, a life whose life is directed and guided by the truths and the principles in the Word of God. That's wisdom's instruction. And as we go along, as the father leads his family in teaching them the principles of God's Word, those kids are going to be affected by that. And they are likely, this isn't absolutely guaranteed, but they are likely to follow in the same path. Second thing I want you to notice from this verse is wisdom's practice. It says, don't reject your mother's teaching. So let's consider on this Mother's Day what the mother's role is in raising this godly seed that God pursues in the marriage relationship. To hear some people talk, the Bible, throughout the Bible, it relegates a wife to nothing more than the little woman who sits submissively in the background, waiting for the next directive from her overbearing husband. That's the picture that many people have of how the Bible talks about women. Its desire is to subjugate them, to press them down, to put them in their place, to dismiss them as though they did not have good sense. And yet, anybody who is a student of the Word of God knows that never in all of Scripture does the Bible ever describe a woman's role in her family or in her church or in her nation in those kinds of terms. Women are prominent throughout the Word of God. In every place that the gospel has captured a culture, the status of women has been enhanced. It has been elevated. Paul even refers to a wife as the oikodespoteo is the Greek word. It means the Lord, the master, the manager of the home. That's what Paul said about them. You know, Paul the chauvinist, Paul the hater of women. He told in the book of Titus that she is the oikodespoteo. She is the Lord of the home. Lord with a lowercase l, but she is the Lord of home. And what it means is she's the manager of the home. The wife, the woman, the mother, in practical ways, makes the home function properly. And most of the people who are listening to me today, most of the men who are listening to me today and who will listen to me in our morning worship service at Unity will agree with that. What would we do without them? Because they manage the home. They make it function properly. So it is not surprising that when it comes to raising children, God gives to the mother an extremely significant responsibility. And that is in reference to God's moral law. We know them as the Ten Commandments. They are God's moral law. To put it in more common terms, a wife works in partnership with her husband's instruction by taking God's moral law and showing them how they apply those laws in practical ways to the issues of life day by day. And a mother is in a far better position and has a much better opportunity normally to do this. She deals with the children day after day. She is in very personal contact with them. This is important teaching. And Solomon is speaking to Rehoboam, and he is saying, look, you listen to my instruction out of God's word, the fear of the Lord. But don't you dare dismiss the teaching of your mother. Because she takes the principles, the truths of this word that I am teaching you, and she applies it in practical ways in your life. You know, becoming a mother is a pretty basic proposition. You have a baby and you're a mother. I mean, that's it. It is the greatest honor, the greatest title, and the greatest responsibility a woman can ever have to be a mother, just as it's the greatest title, the greatest honor, the greatest responsibility that a man can ever have to be a father. So becoming a mother is pretty basic, but being a mother is a totally different thing. This is the sacred responsibility that God has given to mothers. The discipling, and that's the real word, the discipling of her children. A mother's responsibility as well as a father's responsibility in coordination with one another and in cooperation with one another, in partnership with one another. Their responsibility together is to disciple their children. The father as the responsible head of the home, the mother as the guide and the manager of the home, work together to disciple their children to godliness in their life. To do that, not to just become a mother, but to be a mother, takes time, it takes effort, it takes patience, it takes determination on the part of that woman to instill in the life of their children the godly principles that are going to guide them throughout their life. It is a lot of work. And if you have in your life, if you have had the privilege of being raised by such a woman, you are blessed indeed. And if you were raised in a home where both your father and your mother partnered together in teaching, in training, in applying, and in living out the principles of godliness before you, they illustrated it before you, and they did it consistently. If you were raised in that kind of a home, you have been given a privilege that few people in this world have ever experienced, and you need to be thankful. And in being thankful, you need to pass it on to the next generation. You have been given something that few people in the world have ever experienced. And you need to commit yourself to passing it on to the next generation. I was raised in a single family home, a single parent home. And my mother raised us. She raised 8 children virtually alone. She was no theologian, but she lived out her faith, and her family noticed. God has given to every mom, to every dad too, but to every mom, the tremendous power of influence in their child's life, for good or for bad, for better or for worse. But He has given to every parent, and specifically I'm talking about mothers here, He's given to every mother that tremendous responsibility to be an influence in their child's life. Don't fail to use that influence to move that child toward a godly lifestyle. You need to understand, as I do, that there are forces of evil in this fallen world that are vying for your child's mind and for their heart. Your child's eternal destiny is the grand prize. Fight the good fight of faith for them. Do all you can to win your child for Jesus' sake. You say, well, how do I do this with guarantee? There are no guarantees except that you make the ground in such a condition that the chances are they will follow in your footsteps. Be genuine, be real, live it yourself, and then pass it on to your children. Well, the question, as I said at the beginning, is always, how do I do this? And even though there are no guarantees that the child will eventually follow, our job, our responsibility is to seek to prepare the soil of their heart so the Holy Spirit can do His work. The how of it, I think, is found in our homes. It is found in our personal lives. Let me give you some suggestions, and that's all these are, and there are many more, I'm sure. Here are some suggestions. I'm going to give you 5 of them real quick. Make attendance at church the number 1 priority in your home. You let other things interfere with church attendance, and you are teaching your child that other things are more important than being in church and worshiping the Lord. Second thing, when church is over, ask them about what they learned in Sunday school, in junior church, or in church, and discuss it with them. Talk to them about it. See what they have learned about this. It gives you the opportunity to help them understand more clearly. Third thing is teach them Bible stories and make practical applications to their life. There are many resources that are available to parents to teach their children Bible stories. Fourth thing, be alert to events that happen during the day in the neighborhood with their friends, and teach them biblical principles in relation to that. You have kids who are going to be out in the neighborhood. They're going to have disagreements and fights, and they're going to do things and all that. It's part of growing up. but bring them in the evening, perhaps, or at supper or at bedtime, whenever it is, and talk about those things and teach them the biblical principle involved that will help them deal with that better next time. And then finally, listen to them. Talk to them, listen to them, see what they're thinking, and then guide them into biblical truth. Solomon said to Rehoboam that his mother's law is the law of God, and they are to receive it. And he was talking about a godly mother. Understand, her law is the law of God. She is guided by the law of God. She lives out the moral principles of God's moral law. She is passing them on to her child. They are to receive it. They are not to reject it. And the idea of the word reject there is to forsake it, to neglect it, to push it away. Because in that culture, a woman's word was lightly esteemed, and that was something that they had to fight against. And Solomon knew that. But it was to be different in the Jewish home, and it should be different in our home. A godly woman is to be listened to, and her law is to be kept and not rejected. One commentary I read made this point, said the mother's life should be the child's lesson, and the mother's words should be the child's law. The authority of the mother is essentially the authority of love. The teachings of the mother should be the teachings of love. And when these thoughts are in mind, we want to enforce the inspired admonition to the young. Do not forsake the law of your mother. On this Mother's Day, there is no greater honor that you could give to your mom than to not forsake the righteous law that she has instructed you in. One last thing, wisdom's reward in verse number 9. For they will be a garland of favor on your head and pendants around your neck. What God is promising us here is a reward to those who honor their father and their mother in this regard. As a matter of fact, several things are promised to the person who submits themselves to the godly instruction of their parents that have been given to them from God's word. God has promised long life. He has promised peace, success, stability, and many other benefits in a very confused world to those who allow the truths of God's word to guide them in their life. Solomon says here they're going to be like a garland of favor on our head and like pendants around our neck. Picture an Olympic athlete on the victor's stand with medals dangling from their neck. That is what Solomon wants us to see here as the reward for listening to our Father's instruction and refusing to forsake the godly teaching or law of our mother. That is God's designated path to a victorious life. And on this Mother's Day, if you had a mother who was godly, who sought to teach you the moral law of God, and who lived it out as a demonstration in front of you, on this Mother's Day, if she still lives, thank her. And if she has already gone to be with the Lord, be thankful for her by upholding in your own life and in your own family the moral principles of God's law that she taught and that she lived, and pass them on to the next generation. Father, I pray today that you would bless this message. We thank you today for our moms, for the lives that they lived, for the patience that they showed with us, for the willingness they had to sacrifice on our behalf. and for the instruction, if not so much by word, certainly by deed. They lived the truth they professed to believe. If that was our experience, help us today to be truly thankful on this Mother's Day. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for joining us today, and have a wonderful Mother's Day with your family.